In September 1906, a riot broke out in Atlanta in response to unfounded allegations published in the city's newspapers that a group of black men had been assaulting white women. Thousands of whites roamed the streets, damaging black businesses, assaulting and severely beating African Americans. It is estimated that 25 to 40 African Americans were killed. The causes of the riot were more subtle and complex than the newspaper reports of violence. Since emancipation, Atlanta had become a city where African Americans could achieve middle-class success. Although within the constraints of segregation, black men and women in Atlanta owned businesses, built stately homes, educated their children, and held membership in social clubs and charity groups. Black wage workers saw their neighbors achieve higher status, and they too expected improvements in their conditions. White anger rose in reaction to African American progress and the growing black middle class, increasing racial tension in the city. The gubernatorial election of 1906 also contributed to racial tension. Both of the candidates for the Democratic nomination, M. Hoke Smith and Clark Howell, ran campaigns painting black Atlantans in a negative light, stirring up fear among whites that their way of life was threatened by the black vote. This kind of explosive violence of the 1906 race riot called the terms of the Atlanta Compromise into question, and the philosophy of activists like W.B. Du Bois, who envisioned equal rights, grew in popularity. Du Bois' essay, A Litany of Atlanta, examines the failure of the Atlanta Compromise to protect African Americans from injustice. In this address, Du Bois directly relates the violence in Atlanta to the failure of the government, at every level, to give African Americans equal rights under the law. In these notes made after the Atlanta race riot, Atlanta University President Horace Bumstead lists the people assaulted, injured, jailed, or otherwise affected by the riot. One person is listed as jailed for kissing. Violent attacks by armed mobs of white Americans against African Americans in Atlanta, Georgia, began after newspapers, on the evening of September 22, 1906, published several unsubstantiated and luridly detailed reports of the alleged rapes of 4 white local women by black men. The violence lasted through September 24, 1906. The events were reported by newspapers around the world, including the French Le Petit Journal, which described the lynchings in the USA and the massacre of Negroes in Atlanta, the Scottish Aberdeen Press and Journal under the headline Race Riots in Georgia, and the London Evening Standard under the headlines Anti-Negro Riots and Outrages in Georgia. The final death toll of the conflict is unknown and disputed, but officially at least 25 African Americans and 2 whites died. Unofficial reports range from 10 to 100 black Americans killed during the massacre. According to the Atlanta History Center, some black Americans were hanged from lampposts. Others were shot, beaten, or stabbed to death. They were pulled from streetcars and attacked on the street. White mobs invaded black neighborhoods, destroying homes and businesses. The immediate catalyst was newspaper reports of 4 white women raped in separate incidents, allegedly by African American men. A grand jury later indicted 2 African Americans for raping Ethel Lawrence and her niece Mabel Lawrence. An underlying cause was the growing racial tension in a rapidly changing city and economy, competition for jobs, housing, and political power. The violence did not end until after Governor Joseph M. Terrell called in the Georgia National Guard, and African Americans accused the Atlanta Police Department and some guardsmen of participating in the violence against them. Local histories by whites ignored the massacre for decades. It was not until 2006 that the event was publicly marked on its 100th anniversary. The next year, the Atlanta massacre was made part of the state's curriculum for public schools.